What is good, family? This is your girl. I am Courtney Michelle, and I am back again with another live. Thank you guys for joining me on this evening. I know, you guys, it has been a lot. Um, and particularly, I am talking about the case in Memphis with the five Black police officers and the untimely murder of Tyree Nichols. This particular case hit home for me personally because I am in the beautiful state of Tennessee. Memphis is roughly about 2.5 hours away. So this hits home for me because it happened in my home. I guess I got a lot of mixed emotions. This is the first time I saw where a case like this, a lot of people have opted out not wanting to see the footage of the police officers and Mr. Nichols. I watched it a few times. I admittedly have shed a few tears over the situation. So I wanted to come up to speak about it today and to kind of give some words about it. Um, this morning, I was doing my little YouTube search. I'm always on YouTube listening to different people and things like that. And then I saw a video, which I'm going to play today, but it was asking about the Memphis chief there, CJ Davis. Should she be fired? And this is the first time I'm really hearing about, should we fire her? Do we get rid of her? Because from what I was understanding before, was because it was so swift and we got arrested and people were fired and people are being charged. Like, this is really the first time where publicly things happen at an expedient rate. And I think a lot of times when we see these particular cases and police brutality, we're like, why is it taking so long? Why is it an investigation? You have the footage. You have this. You should arrest now. So this is, I think, the first time for me seeing a public case in the media that it happened so quick. And I thought that that was an amazing job on the chief of police, CJ Davis. I said, well, finally, thank you. Something has happened at a timely manner. Then, me and my little research and self, and me always trying to look deeper into things like that. I saw some stuff about her and just trying to understand who she was, where it brought a pause. And so when that question came up, should she be fired? At first I was like, for what? She's doing her job. And is this a infraction on her and her abilities and her being a police chief? Is it? And then I started reading things and I was like, well, now I don't know. I have no idea. So I said, well, let me go live. And I wanted to get other people's opinions. And I want to kind of go over some of the stuff that I found. And it's been in the news. And I wanted to do a deep dive on that. So before I start in the show, I want to thank Johnny. I see you, Uncle Stu, my guy. I'm going to bring some people up. So I definitely want to get you guys' opinion after we go over this to see what you guys think. Oh, Vaughn, good. I see you. My sister in Christ. I'm probably gonna mess up your name. Catalia. You're beautiful. So I thank you so much for joining me today. What's up, Deb Will? I see you. So let me go ahead and start. And this is what prompted the live today, and from when I saw, and this was from another former police chief. I believe she was in California, another Black woman, but she had a difference of opinion about the chief, CJ Davis. So let's go ahead and let's see what she has to say.
PD Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey joins us now. You have actually called for the police chief to resign. You said she should go. I'm assuming then you disagree with Benjamin Crump's praise there. Tell us why, in your view.
You've been a part of that system and you don't understand the nuances, and you would say what Mr. Crump said. And so what she did was a baby step. She did what she had to do. She's in damage control. She understands that she's an at-will employee serving at the pleasure of a mayor. We've heard that many community members have complained about that Scorpion unit, and yet nothing was done. The fish rots from the head. She is solely and totally responsible. And while she fired 5 officers quickly, there were many more than 5 standing around. That Scorpion unit is alleged to have 40 officers, and I'm sure there were some officers from her patrol unit who also were present. So disbanding the unit, getting rid of those 5 and allowing the others to stay on the department and who are probably working and pulling folks over today is not sufficient enough for me.
But do you agree that the swift action that we have seen from the chief is a potential blueprint for these cases, these types of cases moving forward?
Well, she certainly shows that an administrative investigation can be adjudicated quickly. On the LAPD, my chief has 365 days, and maybe that's what it is nationwide. But it doesn't take 365 days to investigate an administrative hearing, and so she's shown that. And so no longer can a police chief pretend that they need weeks and months to finish an investigation and find out whether or not wrongdoing occurred.
Right, and oftentimes they know it's occurred. I mean, they use the investigation as cover to not have to say anything. They can just say, oh, it's under investigation. We don't have to say anything. Well, now we know how quickly it can happen. So on the disbanding of the Scorpion unit, what is the intended purpose of these sorts of specialty police units? The district attorney there in Memphis says they tend to breed a culture of aggressiveness. As a retired sergeant, is that your view?
Well, I think these specialized units certainly have a place, but it's imperative that you have supervisors.
I think unfortunately, we're losing Sergeant Dorsey there. I was really looking forward to hearing her perspective, but we'll try to bring her back once we sort out those audio issues. Retired LAPD Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey, thank you.
So what she stated was that everything falls on her, which we always know that under leadership, it does fall on you. What she's asking for is her to be fired. And again, like I stated before, I said, you know what? No, why would we fire her if she did her job? And again, it's still under investigation. I'm not sure if you guys saw that there was a 6th police officer that has now been relieved of duty. I don't think that he has been charged just as of yet, but yet there is a 6th. So I'm going to assume there's probably going to be more that is going to be alleviated from their job, fired, charged. So it's still ongoing. So let's get into who is the police chief, C.J. Davis. Let's get some background on her. So she is obviously an American police officer. She is the 13th chief of police in Memphis. She is also the first Black female police chief in Memphis. She joined the Atlanta Police Department in 1986. She was demoted and then fired in 2008, but reinstated following an appeal process. And this is what we're going to take a look at on why she was fired in Atlanta. Davis became deputy chief of Atlanta Police once she got reinstated. And in 2016, she became chief of the Durham Police Department in North Carolina. She was sworn in Memphis as Memphis Police Chief in 2021. And again, she is the first Black chief there in Memphis, here in my state. She is married, has 1 daughter with 2 grandkids. So I know you guys probably heard about Jason Whitlock blaming the single mothers, but I wanted to specify on this is that she's not a single mother. She's married and has 1 child. So let's just debunk that real quick. I had to do it. Davis was terminated from her position at Atlanta Police Department Internal Affairs Commander for her alleged involvement in a botched sex crimes investigation into the husband of an Atlanta police sergeant. So I wanted to know more about it because I'm nosy. And I wanted to know, what in the world did she get fired for? She's been on the squad since 1986, longer than a lot of us has been born, except for me. But she was fired in 2008, and then it says something about a botched sex something, and I was like, okay, I need to know a little bit more so I can understand who she is and why would they fire her. So let's talk about Terrell Marion T.C. Crane. You guys following me? I got it. Crane, and this is the gentleman who, this is the beginning of the story. So I want to make sure that you guys are staying along with me in the story time. This gentleman, T.C. Crane, started approaching young girls in 1999, offering them $25 to $100 for sex or to recruit girls for him. Something like a pimp. Crane took photos or directed the photos to be taken of sexual activities. Sometimes the girls would come to Crane's house, but many of the encounters were at or inside of TC's pickup truck. A clerk at a photo shop, concerned about the pictures that Crane brought to the store for processing, called police. This was in 2000. In the year 2000, the woman saw the pictures of the sexual acts involving children and kids and alerted the police. The clerk continued to give police pictures as Crane brought in the film for processing throughout 2002. So for 2 years, this lady was sending the pics to Atlanta Police Department about TC. And obviously within those 2 years, nothing was done. In 2003, the third year, Crane's wife, who happens to be an Atlanta police sergeant, her name is Tanya C. Crane, heard a rumor that the department had sexual explicit photographs of her husband with girls, many of them in middle school. She searched her home, her house, and burned the pictures she found. So again, TC, 1999, was soliciting girls, giving them money to do sexual acts to him, each other, and wanted them pictures. The pictures that were developed, the clerk said, hey, police officers, there's this man and these alarming pictures that I'm giving to you. And for 2 years, nothing was done. On the third year, his wife, who was a sergeant on the Atlanta Police Department, found out that there are pictures of her husband with middle school girls. Well, once the wife found out, and she's a sergeant, what do you think she did? Let's continue. 2 detectives accused, and this is the police chief of Memphis now, but they accused CJ Davis of telling them not to investigate Crane's husband, TC Crane, after the department obtained the sexual photos of him with underage girls. So again, what was told was that the investigators that started to investigate within the 3rd to 4th year of these pictures being sent to the police department, that the police chief, then in Atlanta, but what we have in Memphis now, CJ, was told not to investigate. Atlanta Police Department investigators also allegedly knew Crane's police officer wife had burned pictures she found in her home, and the APD did nothing in the 7 years after investigators were tipped off. So nothing was done. So they suspended the sergeant, the wife of the guy, Tanya. They suspended her with no pay. And in November 2007, on allegations that she destroyed the evidence, she then resigned and was never charged with anything. So the wife wanted to get rid of the evidence, didn't turn her husband in, even though she saw the pictures, and they were also in her home. Didn't turn him in, and decided, you know what, I'm just going to resign. And she was never charged with anything. TC, however, the guy, her husband, was arrested in November of 2007 after FBI agents were tipped off that the Atlanta Police Department had more than 50 pictures that depicted him engaging in sexual acts with at least 11 girls between the ages of 12 and 15. This is, and he has now passed away now, but this is Police Chief Richard Pennington. Now, the alleged actions and the reason, I guess, where they failed to take action, what he stated that it would not be tolerated in the Atlanta Police Department. And he stated, and I quote, "When the incident came to my attention in October, I immediately ordered a full inquiry and invited the FBI to assist with the investigation. People will be held accountable and responsible for their actions or inactions, as the case may be." An investigation conducted by the city later found that CJ Davis was at fault for the inaction. Then Chief Richard Pennington first demoted the longtime law enforcement official from major to lieutenant before deciding to fire her. Crane was later indicted by the federal grand jury on charges of producing child pornography, to which he pleaded guilty to one count in January 2019. He then served 10 years in federal prison for child pornography and all the pictures that was seen. So again, the reason why she was fired in Atlanta was due to the fact that the investigator stated that she did not want to investigate the sergeant, Tanya, in these allegations over her husband. All right, I see you at 5 Courtney. Were these girls black, and is Tanya Crane a black woman? I don't know if the little girls are black. I mean, obviously this is Atlanta, so I can assume that some of the girls probably were. But I didn't see any pictures of the girls. Of course, they were minor, so they usually keep their identities completely hidden. But it's an amazing question, and it's something I might want to look at a little bit further. Hey, Chaotic, I see you, brother. Now, what is also interesting, and like I said before, when we are doing the deep dive on who she is, she was rehired back. Now, they fired her back in 2008, 2009. However, she got her job back in Atlanta because she appealed the charges that she was not taking any action. She decided to appeal, and she won. In a press conference in Memphis, she stressed that she was used as a scapegoat. And this is, I quote, "I refused to take the blame for something I had nothing to do with. I decided to fight the case because I knew if I fought the case, the truth would come out." Davis appealed her termination to the city's Civil Service Board and won. The board wrote that Davis provided convincing testimony about the malicious setup of the unit she supervised. One of the investigators admitted during the hearing that, and this is what she said, that I never told them not to investigate the particular case, she said. So her appeal won. And what she stated was that she never said not to do an investigation. at all, and she had nothing to do with it. And surprisingly, if she did, I think that it would have stuck. But she said that she was used as a scapegoat. And so my little head, I'm just like, what would you be used as a scapegoat for? What else was going on during that time where they needed you as a scapegoat? Like, what was going on? Another case. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this. This was a while ago, and it was big back in 2006. And this is about Katherine Johnston. Katherine Johnston, she was 92 years old. And let me read over the case. And this is about police corruption that happened in Atlanta during the same time that this was also considered corruption, which got CJ fired. The story of Katherine. 3 officers had entered her home in what was later described as a botched, it's that word botched again, drug raid. Officers cut off burglar alarms and bars, broke down her door using the no-knock warrant. Police said Johnston fired at them, and they fired in response. She fired 1 shot out the door over the officer's head, and they fired 39 shots, 5 or 6 which hit her. None of the officers were injured by her gunfire, but Johnston was killed by the officers. Police injuries were later attributed to the friendly fire from each other's weapons. So the background on this. The unmarked cars pulled up in front of her home, and they did a no-knock warrant and bust in this 92-year-old lady's house. They were not dressed as police officers. They had plain clothes on. So again, and this is, I don't know that she lived in the safest of areas, but she saw men breaking into her home she had no idea why they was there. They had no police identification on them as far as their clothes or cars. And they bust in her home. And like anyone that owns a gun at home, what would you do if someone breaks in your home that you have no clue why they're there? You're going to shoot. And that's what she did. Her 92-year-old beautiful self. One of the officers planted marijuana on Johnston's house after the shooting. Later, investigators found that the paperwork stating that the drugs were present at Johnston's house, which had been the bias for the raid, were falsified. The officers later admitted to having lied when they submitted cocaine as evidence, claiming that they had bought it at Johnston's house. 3 officers were tried for manslaughter and other charges surrounding falsification, convicted and sentenced to 10, 6, and 5 years. So what was going on that the police chief, C.J. Davis, thought that she was a scapegoat? The same time that was happening with her sergeant and the sergeant's husband with these pictures of underage girls and sexual activity. This was the same time that this 90-year-old woman was shot and killed by police officers in Atlanta, and drugs was planted in her home. They falsified police reports to justify the killing of her. All of this was going on at the same time. So she said that she was a scapegoat because they had to fire someone of a big title, I'm guessing to save face. Man. Davis retired from the department in 2016 to become the chief of Durham, North Carolina Police Department. She spent 5 years as Durham police chief, leaving in 2021 to take the job in Memphis. In both cities, she was the first African-American woman to lead the department. So after she got hired back in Atlanta, she decided to retire and she moved to Durham. And for 5 years, she worked in Durham, North Carolina. She decided to come to Memphis and she was the police chief in Memphis and only has been here in my state for a year. She does a lot of movement. Now, doing that raid in Atlanta with Katherine Johnston, there was somewhat kind of, well, we're talking about the Scorpion unit. There was the Red Dogs back then. And I know a lot of you guys might have remembered or talked about the Red Dogs was a special unit. And that unit, just like the Scorpion unit, was particular in trying to fight and combat particular crime. Well, she took that model and brought that here in Tennessee to Memphis. And she decided to create the Scorpion unit. What unit is this? Well, that Scorpion unit, it breaks down as street crimes operation to restore peace in our neighborhoods. They deployed some 40, I believe it's 50 officers, if not more, as a strike team in some of the most volatile corners in the city. Scorpion's supposed successes became a talking point for city officials, including the mayor, Jim Strickland, who highlighted the unit during his January 2022 State of the City speech and listed its early accomplishments as 566 arrests, 390 of them were for felonies as well as seizures, over 103,000 in cash, 270 vehicles, and 253 of weapons. So the Scorpion unit started within a year ago. And the idea, again, street crimes operation to restore peace in our neighborhoods. They were specifically going in areas in Memphis where it was a high crime rate. And they were to, again, like the Red Dogs, but, try to finesse that a little bit more to do the exact same thing. And it's interesting because, now it's the Scorpions unit should have never happened. And why in the world do we have this? And this is horrible. And this is why, Tyree Nichols was murdered. However, in Memphis, when this started, people wanted this. This wasn't an idea that came and people pushed away from and said, no, we don't want this. This was championed and it had early successes of when it started. Let me pull up this clip for you guys so you can see.
Reducing violent crime in the city, something that's become a top concern for the community. In fact, take a look at the numbers. Memphis is seeing an almost 5% increase in violent crime so far in 2021 than this time last year, despite so many working hard to keep the city safe. This new unit will be targeting on hotspots, trying to help that troubling number go down. Caitlin McCarthy has a closer look at exactly how the Scorpion unit plans to do that.
MPD won't say which neighborhoods these crime hotspots they're targeting are located in, but they're basing it off of areas of frequent 911 calls on a daily basis. So I asked a crime prevention advocate on how well he thinks this initiative will work on cracking down on the violent crime. MPD's Scorpion unit is working to stop violent crimes like homicides, carjackings, and assaults. Freedom from Unnecessary Negatives founder Stevie Moore knows how this violence impacts families.
I lost my son 19 years ago. Man, watch him lay on the ground with his head blowed off. Since then, I've been to 2-year-old funerals, 4-year-old, 6-year-old, 10-year-old, like little babies in a casket. So how can we say this might not work?
Moore says any effort to fight crime is better than nothing.
Every time somebody come up with an idea, hey, let's run with it. Let's see, will it work?
The Scorpion unit will have 50 officers in high crime hotspots. The auto theft task force will focus on preventing cars from being stolen, while the gang component will try to stop retaliation during police investigations. The crime suppression team will be out every day to work on building relationships with neighbors, which Moore says is important in getting people to come forward.
Community as a whole is not frustrated with crime in our community.
In its first
So people were excited. And by all means of what we've seen as far as the numbers, besides this particular incident, it seemed as if the unit was quote unquote working. Let me say this. Being from Tennessee, and I love Tennessee, y'all. I mean, you know, Nashville to the heart. I'm always wearing Nashville Titans. Like I'm big. As far as I rep my home all day. Memphis is a whole nother different type of city. Memphis has been the murder capital of the world, especially in America, for years. The crimes in Memphis, it supersedes New York. If you look up the number one, supersedes bigger cities. New Orleans. What's other major capitals that are big on crime? St. Louis. Memphis is consistently number one. So I'm thinking like the idea, and with the gentleman saying how many funerals that he's had to go to, it was, what do we do in the city where we're the number one crime rate? How are we going to police the killer city? And so I think the Scorpion unit came about to try to fix an ongoing issue that my state has always had as far as in Memphis. I can't tell you how many times that people from Memphis come to Nashville, come to Chattanooga, go to Atlanta just to physically get out the city because they're scared for their life. If you go on websites, they will tell you cities, not areas in Memphis, not to go to during the day. It's not even telling you where not to go at nighttime. It's during the day. You don't even want to step foot in Memphis in this particular area. So again, I don't know where I stand on this. Let me see. That's not true. It wasn't number one win. Memphis has consistently always been top 1, 2, or 3 murder capitals in America for years. And again, I'm here, so I see it. I see the rest in peace all the time in Memphis. A murder or something happening in Memphis. It ain't good. However, there were a lot of complaints. And some of the complaints is what I have from here. Let me just go over the complaints that he had. And this was a gentleman, Cornell McKinley, had a complaint about the Scorpion unit, stopped him on January 3rd, which is my birthday, 4 days before Nichols was pulled over. And this is what he stated. I actually read it on the back of their vest. It said MPD Scorpion unit, he said. It happened at a Marathon gas station at Ridgeway in Knight Arnold as he was catching a ride with a friend. All I heard is, freeze, get out the car, put your MF hands up before I blow your heads off. Both of you get in the car, put your hands up, he said, recalling the incident. So I put my hands up and one of the officers proceeded to come to the car and he physically pulled me out by my shoulder with a gun, no more than a foot away from my head. McKinley said that officers in unmarked cars never said why they stopped him. He took his picture of the stop. They eventually asked who the drugs belonged to. I said, man, I just want to cross the street to get a pizza and I'm on my way back to the house. He's like, who finna ride for this pound? I said, can we call my lawyer? Then the officer yelled out, this ain't court. This ain't time for lawyers, he said. I was like, man, I just came to get a pizza. He was like, I was just playing. Ain't no pound in the car. And he let me walk off. McKinley stated he placed 2 phone calls to MPD's internal affairs to complain about the officer's forcefulness, but he still hasn't heard back. So even with the Scorpion unit, there were complete complaints. A lot of the complaints were that these guys were bullies. And this is one of the guys that said that they just came off saying, I'm going to blow your MFing head off for no reason. Again, that's the idea of what bullying is. The police chief, C.J. Davis, and I guess this is why I am having or really trying to figure out my stance because I don't know yet. She was the police chief for a year in Memphis. Again, she was in Durham back in 2020 and 2021. Now, if you see the murders in Memphis, where in 2020, she was not there, it was 290. In 2021, 304. However, when she became the police chief in Memphis in 2022, it went down to 237. Was that because of her? Was it because of the Scorpion unit? I don't know. And maybe it's not. But what she's holding on is that even though this happened, year after year, you see that the crime was going up. But once I got to Memphis, it went drastically down. I got some people in the back. I'm going to bring them up. So again, what should happen? What do you guys think about this as far as the Scorpion unit and her? Should she be fired? Is this her fault? Uncle Stu, I see you. What is going on? Logic, I got to bring you up, baby. Finally!
I got. Oh, so you got 2 military vets up
I
here.
know. So, I don't know how much you read, but I kind of gave the background of who she was and what happened in Atlanta, the story about why she got fired. And then she said she was used as a scapegoat. And around the same time of the reason why she got fired, there was another huge case going on of a senseless killing of a 92-year-old woman. And then we have her. And now we have this. What are your thoughts and opinions? And should she be fired? And Uncle Stu, I'll go to you first.
Okay.
Hold up. Why you got to go first? You racist.
You absolutely right.
Hey, look, hold up. It's the light that making me look light, bruh.
Hey, nah. I'm actually looking kind of Courtney Michelle and Stewart. I'm looking like a full-blown red bone.
You've been exfoliating. Your skin looking healthy.
Hey, that's probably because. Go ahead.
Go ahead. What you got from me, Uncle
Stu? I don't know. There's so much dealing with this case that they probably got information we don't have access to yet. Because on some of the research that I've done, evidently one of the police officers this guy was targeted. You know, this guy was personally targeted because he allegedly was dating one of the police officers' exes. So this was a targeted situation. I'm quite sure that there's more than enough reports about this unit, and they're blaming her because the buck stops at the top, that she either should have done something dealing with this unit or, you know, knew about what was going on with this unit. So there's probably a lot more information that we are just not privileged to as of yet.
Right. And I agree to that's why I said it's ongoing. Like I said, we already have another man, which is the sixth man that has been fired. He hasn't been charged yet, but this is just today. So it is ongoing.
It is. And then you got to look. She's been at 3 different departments. I've haven't been in North Carolina when she was in Durham, so I know who she is. You know, because I used to live in North Carolina, so I do know who she is. And there was issues there. It just wasn't as big, as heavy. So her name is definitely known in North Carolina as well as Atlanta. So, you know, there's a lot of issues that she had floating around, but this also goes to the understanding that you can be bad in one department, leave, and easily be in another police department. I think this has to go to, I love one of the answers that I saw on another platform where we got to fight to take this to a federal level. I believe that it's time to take the police department out of the local and state hands, at least the local police department hands, and begin to really have prosecutors that are not involved in the local police department. They got to be away from all of that so that we can start cleaning this stuff up, because it's a lot. It's a whole lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I want to show this because, you know, I'm seeing people not thinking that Memphis is as dangerous. And then someone said Nashville is as dangerous as Memphis, which is cap.
Memphis dangerous. See, look.
But people that are not wanting to be honest, right?
They blowing smoke up your ass.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I live here. Born and raised in Tennessee. I know Memphis well, and I know Nashville well.
Yeah,
I know Chattanooga well.
If you go to Memphis, you better not leave B Street. What is it, Beale Street?
Beale Street.
Right.
I go from the BB King restaurant all the way to the FedEx Stadium. That's it. And then I always go to the hotel right across the street from that, and it's a FedEx arena.
It is.
That's it. That's how I go, because I know it's crazy. So I mean, but if they want you to show the stats for them to
it's like the weirdest thing. And it's people, I mean, you can't debate me on this. You live in Nashville, not Memphis. It's 2.5 hours away. That's like someone saying, you can't tell me about Atlanta because you live in Marietta. No, you can't tell me about Atlanta because you live in Alpharetta. I can tell you. I definitely can't. It's around the corner.
Yeah, that's why you should have been playing that thing. But I'm gonna give you my thoughts on that police chief situation.
Okay, let me share this because so the people will know. Can you see?
You know, I'm on my phone. I can't see. I ain't on my computer.
Okay.
I trust you. If not, I'll look at the replay and I'll make a video on your ass.
This is according to crime stats. The below list is the most dangerous cities in the U.S. in 2023 by rank crime data based on violent crimes in 2023. And this is, you know, the murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault. Number 1, Memphis, Tennessee. Number 2, Detroit, Michigan. Number 3, Little Rock, Arkansas. Number 4, Tacoma, Washington. Memphis is number 1. Let me see. Do I see Nashville on here?
Nah.
I sure don't.
Yeah.
Look how low my state is, New York.
Right. Okay, this is for 2021, the year prior to when this came out. What was number 1 again? Memphis. Most dangerous cities in the U.S. Okay, I pulled that up. Let me pull up another one. The biggest homicide problems. Memphis is on there. It says number 8 on here compared to Atlanta, Baltimore, Detroit. I mean, it's the same, but it's always Memphis. Memphis is rough. It's very rough.
They know it's rough.
I know. So but you got to show the people.
But see, the same thing you got to go through to show people is the same reason the lady got fired. Anytime you tough on black people, you're going to be seen as a villain.
Mm-hmm.
That's what so like the whole concept of her doing what she did. I think I hear echo. The whole concept of yeah,
Say that
test. Yeah, I do hear echo.
it's
Y'all don't hear it?
a little. I got. Let me mute myself. Maybe it's.
Let's see. All right, test. Yeah, that cheap ass Mac. You good?
No,
All
it's
right.
not. It's not bad. You can probably hear echo, but it's
All
not
right.
bad. But go ahead. I want to hear
All
what
right.
you say.
So the thing is, it is what it is. Anytime anybody tough on crime, anytime anybody tough on black people, anytime anybody tough on the center programs, anytime somebody go against the narrative that black people want to push, even if it's for the betterment of them, they will still be made out to be a villain.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a separate question about this whole situation, but these special units needed. Cause you know what I'm saying, these guys running around here, they got switches, you know what I'm saying, they got 200 round magazines in a 9mm, and which is the most insane thing you can probably ever think about. But hey, they do it.
Mm-hmm.
These places are war zones. And then now you have to have these special operation units to actually conduct stuff. Atlanta used to do the Red Dogs because I think I heard you said it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And then because Atlanta was going through a major drug problem, you know what I'm saying? Atlanta was a major hub going through, coming from Florida, and then pretty much on 20, you can go everywhere. And then plus you can continue up 95. They had to actually, you know what I'm saying, make harsh decisions. The
Right.
only thing that I don't get, why would they fire her for putting this unit together?
So,
And
well,
go
she's
ahead.
not fired yet. So it's people are coming out saying and wanting her to get fired.
Well, pretty much
Mhm.
if Keisha and Tyrone come out and enough of them come out and say gonna get fired, people gonna fold the pressure. And she's probably already done it. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And now, if she's not a donor, how effectively is she gonna be in that position, knowing that
Right.
she's walking on pins and needles?
Yeah.
And my only question I got though too on this, and I want to know y'all opinion. If this was a special unit, why were they making random traffic stops? Like the Red Dogs didn't do that. The special units, they didn't run around doing random traffic stops like that.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Oh, go ahead.
Well, the unit was for to combat the traffic issues that they were having. So what she stated was that in Memphis there was a big problem with people drag racing in cars, and so this particular unit was to offset that as well too. So it was for driving infractions as well.
Yeah, but see, that's not a special. You see, like if
Wait
you
a
say
minute.
drag racing and all that kind of stuff like that, I can understand.
Mhm.
But it's certain things you identify as drag racing. But why did they say the initial reason they pulled them over was um
Um,
what is a random
Yeah,
traffic
I
violation,
heard
right?
two different. I heard two different stories about the pullover. Um, One that's coming out today. That's why I haven't done anything on it because I'm trying to get all the facts.
it's a
Was
lot.
that yeah? One of the police officers that pulled them over, he was targeted because evidently, allegedly, the guy himself was either dealing with or dating his ex, the
Yeah,
police
but see
officer's ex.
but I saw that
Yeah.
post
Well,
too, and I
Yeah,
saw
no,
it
but I
on
seen a lot
Facebook.
of people that was in the New York Post. They talked about that. The other thing was I thought that this unit was more of a drug unit. That's the only time I've ever heard of special units, either for drugs or for crime. I didn't know it was for traffic stops because that's how we had a special unit in New York like that too. That was strictly to combat the drug issue. And
mhm.
now we got special units because of 9/11.
So the unit, the Scorpion, the S is for street crimes. So it was for driving infractions and drag racing. So it was for street crimes. Now he got pulled over for reckless driving. That's what they said they pulled him over for. However, what the mother is saying is that when the police officers came to her door, they stated that he was was about to get arrested for a DUI, and that they had to pepper spray him, and that he's at the hospital and blah blah blah. So that's what the police went to his mom's door to specifically say, that he was arresting for a DUI.
I got a question for you. What's the role of a police officer?
To protect and serve.
To protect and serve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, the way the system was set up is that we police each other, and then now any kind of discrepancy with each other, as we police each other, the police was designed to protect and serve, right? But what we see now is they no longer protect and serve; they're policing us.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about this too the other day, because I'm about to goddamn throw up the deuces, and I was thinking about that place. And I was thinking about it in Korea, and I was thinking about different places I went to. It's like cops don't chase people. Cops don't do these random traffic violations because we're in the police state. Police now, they police us. We literally, it's no longer protect and serve. But if you go into other communities, i.e. suburbs, white community, they police each other. Police come in when there's a discrepancy between this person and that person. But right now, it's really getting to the point where America is really, really becoming a police state, to the fact that I got to think about it. Like, they'll set up traffic, speeding traps. They're policing us.
Yeah.
And I'm getting to a point. Here go the popo.
I have an all-star panel. I want to keep you guys up. I have someone in the back. I want to bring him up to see what he has to say. But then, Officer Cerelyn.
I'm not. Hey, make this clear. I'm for the police. I'm not saying fuck the police. But what I'm saying is that, isn't it getting to the point now? And then maybe I got that experience because I lived in other countries and I saw how police do. They protect and serve, and they don't police its citizens.
Right.
It feels like in America today, I feel like when a cop just randomly following me, a cop setting up speed traps, and they doing that, you kind of feel like you're being policed.
All right, hold that thought.
All right, go ahead.
Let me bring up one of my guests here. How are you? This is Black. Let me put you guys' name on here so everybody know who we talking to. Hold on, my apologies. All right, Blacks Who Defy. Okay.
Yes, it's me.
How are you doing? What do you got for us today?
I'm okay, and you? That's great. No, I have been following the goings on with this specific situation, and you guys are talking about special units, and I'm from Chicago. I don't live there now, thank God, but I remember when I did live there, they had a special unit called SOS, and they would do much like these guys did with the Scorpion unit. They go into troubled neighborhoods, usually the southeast side or the west side of Chicago, and they would come in and wreck shop, arrest people, sometimes what seemed flagrantly, and had black sites as well. So they would have black sites, they disappear people. You wouldn't see them for months or sometimes years or sometimes never again. And, with this situation here, just like with the Dallas police chief, when that incident happened in 2016, once he resigned from there, all he did was move to Chicago, and now he's the police chief of Chicago. So when this police chief ultimately is fired, she'll resign, and then she'll go someplace else. She'll land.
Yeah. Well, interesting that you mentioned that, because there was a lot of talk when she left Durham. And they said that she was leaving because there was some stuff that was undone. And that she was running away from a lot of problems. Not saying that she created, but she didn't resolve a lot, and it was a lot of pressure on her. And they said that she upped and left and then came to Memphis, which again is interesting. Why come to Memphis? Why would you leave Durham to come to Memphis unless she wanted to take on the task of a very highly volatile city? But again, that asks a question. Why did she leave Durham? That I don't know yet.
I'm unsure as to why she left Durham, but like I said, it's par for the course for police chiefs like that. They have a situation where it was something that was detrimental to their reputation, and then they move on to the next city, somewhere that needs their particular brand of policing. Because from what I know, I've never been a police officer. I was in the Army for a while, but I just do know that they're not considered really officers. They're politicians in a sense. So when they get hired, they come in, wreck shop, produce whatever policy they want, and that's enacted, that's aligned with whatever the mayor wants them to have, and then the mayor has anonymity, and everything's put on the shoulders of the chief, good or bad. Well, especially,
wait, I'm gonna ask you this question, brother.
Yeah.
What did she do wrong for us to be even discussing her?
I don't believe she did anything wrong, honestly. I just am saying that she is the scapegoat. You put all your sins on the scapegoat, and then you set it out into the wilderness. That's what she is. That's her job. That's any person who's in authority's job, especially a police chief.
You was in the military, right?
I was.
Yeah, I was about to ask
what
you
was your rank
too.
before you left?
Oh, me? E5.
Yeah. E5. So you had soldiers, right?
Yep.
Your soldiers go out on the weekend in the field. They do something stupid. Do we blame you?
Always. They blame me.
Nah.
Look, what are you talking about?
They don't
the only way you get blamed if your soldier passes his job. But if your soldier do something stupid like get in a bar fight, get a DUI, beat his wife, the blame is not on you.
Well, you're saying, okay, so technically, yes, the blame is on me when it comes to them not being disciplined. You know that. But when it comes, and then I 48-56 them, you know that. But then am I going to be punished for their actions? No. I'm not going to be punished. I'm not going to be punished.
Have you went overseas? Because I'm from the Army too.
Yeah, of course I've been overseas.
Okay. I'm gonna back up something that logic says, which is very strange to me. In Europe, they don't carry guns. You don't have that dual threat over there. You have a dual threat over here. You understand? And so we're a dual threat. And what I mean by dual threat is both sides carry guns. Both sides carry a weapon. So both sides already come to a situation ready for it to explode. I'm not giving, you know what I'm saying? It's a weird dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you finish up, and then I'm gonna bring somebody else up too as well. And No Free Lunch Podcast, I see you. I'm gonna bring you up after this. But Nathan, after he finished, I would love to hear what you got to say.
I want to hear no police.
Last thing,
I'm about to go Jay Prince on here.
No, you're not.
Logic. Like, do you want me to drop now? Because I am the son of a police officer. So
no, that's the inside joke with Nathan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Black certified.
I was going to say to Uncle Stu, absolutely. There isn't the dual threat of a handgun, but as you know, they have one of the greatest, highest murder. I'm trying to be careful with my words here, but they have one of the highest rates of people's deaths with weapons there is. And that's using knives and other pointy objects. So they have a dual threat. They just don't have to deal with guns. And in certain places, like the UK specifically. But that was it. But thank you.
Thank you so much.
For having me here.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for joining.
Absolutely.
All right. Nathan, what you have for us?
You guys covered. You got this. Hey, Logic, what's in your cup? Logic, what's in your cup, brother? What's in your cup?
Nah, this a half and half.
Yeah,
right. No, dead ass. Look, it's from Roman Roosters. It's a half and half. No cap.
Nathan, okay, so let me ask you. This is a question that I am posing. Should she be fired?
I say it depends. It's going to depend on a couple of things. I think so. When you guys talked about the Red Dogs unit. Courtney, we talked about this, and let me give people an understanding for those who aren't military to understand the ranking structure and how this thing works. So if you have a regular job, you have a corporate job, you have people who are supervisors, then you have a manager that's over the supervisors, over the department, and then say you might have a director, right? The director is over that entire infrastructure for that particular maybe business, I can say objective, right? So you have a HR supervisor, you have an HR manager, then you have an HR director. They're the top of the chain for HR, right? So if you work corporate, like that's the structure. Policing is the exact same way. It's like, but we use, of course, it's paramilitary. So you have a sergeant, you have a lieutenant, you have a captain, and then you have a major. Then a lot of times you have a deputy chief major, you have a direct, so you have all these different tiers of leadership. So what people are saying with her, CJ, they're saying, okay, well, she should be fired because she also was a part of Red Dog. She was a supervisor. Well, technically, no, she wasn't. She was the manager. She was actually at the top, right? She was almost, you could say, the director of the department. And under her department, she maintained supervision or the watch over maybe 4 or 5 different units, different divisions. So we call that special operations. She was like the major, the director over special operations. And so it's different. She's not as close to the boots on the ground as people like to imagine. That's why you have supervisors in between there. A lot of times people, they have this witch hunt and they want you just because they know you're the face, you're the figure, you're the name on top of everything. They want you to just fall on the sword. And technically it doesn't really work like that. The only way you can really connect her as being responsible is if she interfered in some form or fashion with issues of them not being disciplined properly. If she knew they were out here violating people's rights and she's been signing off on it. But for the most part, you got to get their immediate supervisor are going to be responsible because a lot of times that information has to go up. So if someone lied in between the chain of command as that information is traveling up to her, then she's not privy to it. So a lot of times people say plausible deniability. So plausible deniability means I didn't know. So yeah, I'm in charge, but the people below me are lying about what they're doing on their job. How should I be held responsible? And I think you mentioned it earlier about her issues at Atlanta and got her fired. They said she interfered with the investigation, but yet she was able to turn around and prove that she did not interfere. And so if she had proof that would state that she didn't interfere, you can't fire her for not knowing. So do I think she should be fired? I think it depends on, for example, there were complaints that were made 4 days before Tyree Nichols.
Right.
And no one reached out to him. So that's internal affairs. She has nothing to do with internal affairs. That's a whole entire separate department. So the question is, how does the communication travel when someone is reporting a specialized unit? How quickly does that go through the chain of command as far as supervisors? What supervisor got that information? Did they sit on it? Did it ever make it to them? Did they try to cover it up? And that's who you go. You go one tier at a time and find out, was the information passed on properly? And if it wasn't, then you hold that person accountable. But you just don't jump 5 steps and then just attack the person at the top. It doesn't. That's almost like us trying to arrest President Biden for something that the FBI did. You know what I mean? Though they're under the federal branch of government, it's like you want to
lock his ass up.
Yeah, lock him up. Yeah, lock him up for something the FBI did. It doesn't. You got to go. There's levels to it. And so people I think the biggest problem, and I always say we need to bring professionals into this conversation, is because we have inside knowledge. And so we can better articulate and explain so that people aren't running around here thinking that you're not getting justice the way you think you should. But in actuality, you did get justice. You want to blame someone who's not responsible. And it doesn't, I mean, just like you explained to them about how murder Memphis that's why they got the name, because it was a murder capital but consistently the crime is violent, and people want to go against that. And you're like, hey, I live here. I'm telling you firsthand what happened. And so trust me, I deal with it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
I do want to say this though.
Hold on. Sorry. Let me shout out to Struggle Reviews TV, my darling. I love her. An awesome page. So happy to see you guys discussing the case with as much detail and depth as possible. It's greatly appreciated. Keep it up, Courtney. Great panel. Thank you so much. I appreciate her. And let me bring in No Free Lunch Podcast. How are you doing? Thank you for your patience.
I'm good. Thank you for having me onto the panel. What's going on, everybody?
Hey,
What's
how you
going
doing?
on?
I'm all right. I noticed that a couple of us are prior service,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
prior Navy. Thank you for your service, 4 years and out.
Thank you for your service. It's Navy.
On a boat.
Yeah.
Really the boat.
And
We got us a seaman.
Yeah, he was playing with dolphins.
Good. I'm keep my joke.
now I had to mention that because whenever there's an issue of police brutality, I always bring it back to the security training. You know, I know that y'all are Army, so y'all were more boots on the ground, but our SRF it was very in depth. So even when I didn't even qualify. You know what I mean? Because I had no idea what I was doing. There's a level of force. You can't go to a direct excessive use of force. You just can't. There's components that you have to follow, procedures and etc. And my question every time I see a case like this is, why can we so easily implement that for the military, but not for the public police force? And
But you got to break that down though. What you mean?
Yeah,
Like
because
you mean
You know what you're talking about.
escalation?
Yeah.
right,
You
you
mean
gotta
escalation
explain
of force
what
and rules of
rules of
engagement?
engagement is.
so let's
Yeah.
let's talk about it. Let's talk about it on the simplest terms. So, for example, at the range, right? We got to come back. If there's a bullet missing, who's leaving? Nobody till that bullet's found. Whereas you can be on video allegedly doing XYZ, and there's still room for what happened. We're not sure, etc. It's about accountability. We're not as accountable now as it was in the service. What do you think about that?
Okay, I'm a clarify, especially for people that's not prior military.
Thank you.
Rules of engagement means what particular weapon we can use, what artillery we can use against quote unquote the enemy, or who we cannot be trying to shoot against in a military combat. For example, although we can be engaged in a combat situation, we are not permitted to harm any civilians.
Right.
Rules of engagement. You're not allowed to overuse a weapon on a human being. Rules of engagement. You're not allowed, once you have a quote unquote prisoner of war, there's a certain way you have to treat that prisoner of war. Rules of engagement. So that's what rules of engagement is. And if we don't follow the rules, it doesn't matter what the enemy do, it's what we do.
Exactly.
So even if we don't follow those rules of engagement, a lot of people's going to prison, and we're going to be making some license plates for this country.
Right.
And still got to serve out our contract. So that is the general understanding of rules of engagement.
Well, I think the key thing is what the cops is missing. I think I talked to Nathan about this before too. They have no true escalation of force.
Right.
That is the key thing. Like I just can't come and I just can't go to the highest level pulling out my gun.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I got to make sure that I go through certain protocols. But if somebody approach me with a gun, then I can go ahead and execute that. You know what I'm saying? With equal force. But what we saw with somebody like the Tyree Nickel guy, he had no weapon.
Watching that video, it was hard. It was hard even just getting through the first. Because
Well, hold on. I'm just saying, if he had no weapon, and it's 5 of them, baton, mace, all that stuff like that should have been off the table.
No, it shouldn't have even been a thought.
But that's what I was saying. I was saying this a long time ago. Like, but ain't nobody niggas. Like I said, I'm gonna say it again. This Tyreek thing or whatever his name,
Tyree, it's
gonna last until the Super Bowl. The reason niggas ain't protest is because the goddamn NFC and the AFC championship. Niggas don't really get. I'm telling you, they don't care. Watch when the Super Bowl come. This guy will be a forgotten thing because black people, for the most part, can't focus on nothing, and they really don't care. Right. All the reason they really protesting and they doing this is to make somebody feel bad.
But here's
the reason. I'm almost done. I'm almost done, player. The only Nathan brought this up. The only reason that they go up, they go to the top to get rid of people nowadays instead of before, where they'll knock out the first line supervisors because this is 2023. It's
Right.
cancel culture.
Right.
2023, if somebody run inside the Capitol of the United States, we want to get the president.
Right.
The cancel culture mentality, we want to cancel the top. If somebody did something crazy a guy could have jacked off in some mayonnaise at Burger King. They want to cancel all of Burger King instead of firing that manager and the dude. All right.
Let me.
But I'm
No one.
that no one's noted.
Okay.
No one's noted this. This is the first time, and like I said, I saw the video, so this took me snap back to Rodney King. It's also the first time I've ever seen swift justice in the sense of police being fired immediately, no money. You know what I'm saying? Fired immediately, no money. Everybody else we've ever seen in these cases got checks right after the incident.
Yeah.
So they kind of silenced a lot of stuff before it could escalate.
I'm going to get your last words on this No Free Lunch podcast, and then I'm going to pull up Dub Wheel. So what else you have for us? And I appreciate you coming up too.
No problem. Thank you for having me. My last thoughts were, when I was watching the video, the only thing I thought was, what's the reason? What's the why? You know what I mean? What's the underlying why? Because from the first hand-to-hand interaction that I saw, it was clearly personal. There's nothing that could tell me that it wasn't a personal, somebody knew somebody knew something. And digging up and trying to figure out really what happened, because that's the root of it. Is I want so badly for this, for all of this to end, and I want so badly for this not to have been strictly I'm a policeman and you're a civilian, even though it looks so obviously that it was. But I appreciate y'all having me and having this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your service. This is the first time I felt completely protected. I mean, I got servicemen around me. I got a police officer. I feel secure and safe.
Good.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. All right, I got you, Dub Wheel. Thank you for your patience.
No problem. What's good?
Hey, what's good with you? What you got going on?
Uncle Stu, how you doing? Uncle Logic, Nathan, how you doing? Good to talk to you again.
What's going on, sir?
Nothing much. I really have a.
Y'all put this down in the date that a black woman said she was protected by the black.
Yes. Look at Logic. Don't look like that. That's cool. Never had so many powerful men of service.
It's all talk. She'll be on the stand testifying against us in the RICO case.
Can you point out the individual that did it? It was right there, the dude with the beard. Right there, the dude with the beard.
Over here.
That Courtney, more like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
Hey, we gonna change your channel name to Old Pointing Fingers.
Pointing Fingers. The one with the beige polo hat. Him. He did. No, but my thoughts on this. I understand what everybody's talking about, the whole incident, but I tend to focus on. I saw the videos. The part to where after they caught him after he was running. To me, that is where it got just totally inhumane, right? And Uncle Stu, you brought up the Rodney King incident, and I remember watching that OJ documentary, and they did a part about the Rodney King incident, and the reporter from the LA Times who covered that said what caught him the most about that incident is that when they went back to the station, no one put any kind of incidents down, no kind of special happenings for the night. It was a normal night, and he said for him that implied that this kind of stuff was normal. It wasn't an out of the ordinary event. So when I look at the Tyree Nichols situation, and after they beat him like they did, and I look at the aftermath when they were all kind of just standing around talking, I think somebody was talking about where's my flashlight, and they were just kind of chit-chatting. That made me think of that. And so like, was this a culture of this was the norm? And so really, my question is really directed towards Nathan, since he was an officer. If it's not on the police chief to blame for that, who would be responsible for the tone that's set in the culture of a unit like that?
The nigga neighborhood.
Well, I think that's a good question. I think there's multiple variables involved that we have to actually address. I think Logic brought up one, is that one, you got to look at the environment in which the officers are policing in. Now, this particular situation, we're going to talk about it from a general perspective. This is a very unique circumstance because there's a good chance that this was a premeditated attack against Tyre Nichols, right? And so, but in general, these things do happen where you have officers that move around like they are above the law in groups like wolf packs, and they do harass or they terrorize people or so forth and so on. What happens is people talk about Black communities being over policed. Well, one of the caveats, though, or I guess you would say the flip side of that is Black people are asking to be over policed, right? So it's not a decision, 100% decision that's made on the police department. You know, you have victims within the community, people who want to have a peaceful community who are complaining and saying that they don't get enough police presence. You know, all throughout my career in 13 years, the citizens come and they ask for more police contact because you have the small percentage of 5 to 10% in a community that are terrorizing the actual community consistently. And so from robberies to murders and things of that nature, these things go on. So who do you hold accountable? Honestly, everybody, right? You talk about your politicians whose responsibility is to create the programs needed, the social programs needed to kind of steer communities in the opposite direction. They're not doing their job. You talking about also through the police department, one of the issues that people are not realizing that it's easy to have a rogue officer. It's easy to have a rogue unit. If you don't have supervision that's actively paying attention. One thing I noticed about this group, I didn't see one supervisor at the scene. You know, when I was in a specialized unit, I've been in 3 different specialized units. There's always a supervisor. There's 2 supervisors, a sergeant and a lieutenant that's assigned to that group. And the sergeant is always with the unit. And to supervise their behavior. When you don't have any supervision, these guys look like this isn't the first time they stopped somebody, yanking them out the car, violating their 4th Amendment right, putting guns on them, threatening to shoot them, So there's a history and a pattern of their lack of professionalism and also their abuse of power. There's a pattern because they're very comfortable with it. And they also know the language needed in order to to circumvent around any type of consequences. Oh, stop resisting, stop risking. You look at the video, the man's already handcuffed, or he can't even see because you sprayed him twice. They sprayed him twice. So I think how do you hold someone accountable? You got to investigate, first of all. And a lot of times citizens don't want to hear that part. But that's the reason why there's an investigation, an internal investigation, is that you need to understand what role everybody played in. Folks are just saying everybody at the scene needs to be fired. But technically it doesn't work like that. Right? Because here's why, and I plan on explaining it later on tonight on my channel about the 6th officer that's been fired. People say he should be charged with a crime. And I say, okay, what crime did he commit? Right? He wasn't there providing that ass whooping to Tyre Nichols. So he was never there. So what role did he play? He tased them. Okay, but you have to find out what information, what knowledge did that white officer have that the other 5 officers did or did not have. Did that white officer think that this was a legitimate traffic stop? He wasn't even the one who yanked him out of the car. So, you know, we got to take our time and allow the investigation to unveil what role everybody played in so that you can actually charge people properly. So it needs to go from supervisor to supervisor to supervisor, but it takes time to do that investigation. And so sometimes chopping someone off at the top is not the answer. People just like seeing it done according to like how Logic said, because this is part of cancel culture, you know. So what I would say is, one, everybody involved needs to be properly investigated, and then as the investigation unfolds, they need to be held accountable. That's the only way you can solve it. And you got to also look at the community that they're policing in and who's responsible for providing the programs needed to start to transition this community into a safer community. That's a political thing, you know, and people forget about that.
Let me ask you a question, Nathan, because I said this on your platform, but I didn't know if you heard me earlier, but I said this on your platform. What do you think about, again, taking a lot of the power and the control away from the local and almost putting it as a military? When I say military, meaning how we have higher branches of you know what I'm saying, court system, where we don't have the prosecutors that's on a local level or even on a state level, and sort of either bringing it to either a state or federal level where we can really deal with this issue, because it all gets entangled from a political standpoint, if I'm making any sense.
Yeah, politics is too, and it'll never happen.
Right.
It'll never happen because the feds and the states are like church and state. They always have to remain separate. The states don't want interference with the government at all, with the federal government. You have some states like a Texas, they won't even entertain the idea.
What
the
about
problem is
unions?
The problem is every state in this country, I always say this is the divided states of America. There's nothing unified about this country whatsoever. And every state has its own culture, right? And so when you have your own culture, you have your own politics. A lot of times you have your own interpretation of state law. And that's why everything is ran. So that's why you can get 5 years in California for doing robbery, but get 20 years in Atlanta for doing robbery. There's no consistency. Nothing is uniformed in this country. So one thing they're not going to do is create a uniform structure of law enforcement, which they absolutely should. I think the problem is it should be uniformed. I think the issue is people don't trust the government anymore. And so with that being said, I believe the answer is you have to, in order to top this off properly, police are supposed to serve the citizens. So if you're putting the power of police officers, what's happening is the citizens are relinquishing their parts of their rights and privacies in exchange for safety. And what's happening is the police are not doing a good job. So what does that mean? I basically, this is a bad deal. This is a very bad deal, because the idea is that I'm in charge of serving you and enforcing laws on you. But in exchange, if you also tell me that you want me to also review and punish myself when I'm wrong. The issue with law enforcement is that there isn't an outside source that is overseeing the discipline and accountability of law enforcement. The person enforcing the law and enforcing punishment also enforces law and punishment on itself. That within itself is flawed. That's flawed. Could you imagine if you have a child and your child gets in trouble and you tell the child that the child's responsible for disciplining itself? Now, if I have a belt, I'm going to be like, right? And I'm going to let it go. So what's happening is the citizens have put too much trust in law enforcement. Where we need to make a shift is the citizens need to oversee the punishment and accountability of law enforcement. That's how you create a more proper balance. Because I, as a citizen, have submitted my safety and the responsibility of governing over me. I'm giving you that responsibility. In exchange, you are not doing a good job of carrying out discipline over yourself. So now those who are being served need to then oversee the actual process of accountability. And I think that's when you're going to start seeing a shift. A lot of officers won't like it. They won't like it because citizens don't know anything about the profession. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about it, because then you're going to learn what the expectations of the citizens are over those who are supposed to be servants. And know it's you can't protect and serve until you first enforce the law. That's why the whole marketing scheme about policing is backwards. We are law enforcers in order to protect and serve. You cannot protect and serve without enforcing laws. And so we have to now get to a point where we're reimagining what policing is supposed to look like, and it needs to be done with through the perception and the lens and expectations of the citizens who we are supposed to be serving. And until the profession gets that big point, then we'll always, according like Logic said, we'll always be running in circles. Citizens have to dictate and hold police accountable and be in charge of the process. The police can no longer do it because they're never going to do it properly, because it's too much power. It's way too much power.
Yeah.
Do you think about unions?
Well, go ahead, and then I'm gonna ask the question to you guys. What was that, Uncle Stu?
I was saying, what about unions? Because see, I've always battled with me coming out of New York. They got a strong union, which means you're fighting the union before you even get to the police.
Well, but you mentioned it already. You're already correct. The issue is not the unions. The issue is that the unions have bought politicians. And
Right.
so the unions are paying off the politicians to get what they want. That's why in this country capitalism is a problem. It's not that capitalism is bad. It's that corporations now are making decisions because they're in the pockets of politicians. So when you can buy off people who are supposed to be doing what's best for the people, and now you're being influenced by corporate interests. Now you're being influenced by the interests of the union. You're no longer operating in the best interest of your constituents. That is the problem. The church is the same way. You know, you're influenced by the women because they're paying the tithes. So you're going to actually mold your message around the person that's paying you the money, and that is the issue at the end of the day. So unions are needed, but they need to be out of the pockets of politicians. Politicians are needed, but they need to do their job, which is addressing the needs of their people. And they do not do that. And that's why we have the problems that we have.
Gotcha.
All right. I want to ask you guys a question. And this is some more information that came out about one of the officers. I'm sure we're probably going to get some more about Demetrius Haley. They've come to find out that there were some issues that they had with him prior to. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of that. But what it stated was back in 2016, there was a lawsuit that was alleged that ex-Memphis cop Demetrius Haley, who was 30, was working as a correctional officer back then and was allegedly beating up one of the inmates in the prison system. Apparently, the man had contraband. He was trying to hide a phone. When they went to his cell to try to find it, the guy tried to throw the cell phone away. Obviously, that didn't work. And what happened was one of those police officers, who was Demetrius Haley, and I believe it was one other or two other, started beating him senseless, where he had to go to the infirmary. And there was a lawsuit that was supposed to come out of this. Of course, it was dismissed. The guy Sledge stated that no one took him serious. No one really dived into the lawsuit or his allegations, but it ended up him getting beat and him having to go to the infirmary for his injuries. So that being said, do you guys think that the 5 that are now being charged with, I believe, second-degree murder, should we go back and look at their cases and see if was there anything that was done that might have had an inch of corruption or getting beat like Tyree did for no apparent reason? Should we take the time to go back to look at their history and allegations on them to see if it's just?
I don't know about allegations, because if argumentatively any one of us had to go back, I'm quite sure, point for point, somebody could find something about us and say, see, this is the probable up to here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be too much of a slippery slope, because then that goes into that cancel culture, and then that goes into that almost goes into like a Me Too movement. Let's go back 20 years and find something, and then
Well, yeah, but the thing is, if one of the police officers, and there was a lawsuit back in 2016 saying that he was getting beat like they did recently to Tyree Nichols, then it's okay. Maybe we need, because if this is a pattern that he's had, maybe we should go back to see the others that has said that some of these cops have done this to them to see if it's legit. So you're saying no, because that's a slippery slope.
I'm open to hearing the other arguments.
Okay.
Like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna take a one strong side.
Listen.
In that case that you said, it's like, I don't know.
I feel.
But
I can answer though.
Okay.
I'm gonna answer like this. Do we expect grass to grow in the desert?
No.
No, we don't, right? So why do we expect these good cops to blossom out of these shithole places? And I'm the more I think about it, right? Because look, I used to go on deployments, but I got a break. I was on, then I was off, then I was on, then I was off, then I might not go back for another 3 years. But I don't think we realize how hard that police job is. This is a constant grind. Constant. And like I said, it's constant. Oh man, the more this happens, and I look at these people, the way these cops approach things, and the common thing is that what this happened in what bad neighborhood, right? But we expect these cops to maintain their integrity in these hellholes. Look, we don't even go there. Just said, look, I just said, I got a 2-mile road that I marked off in Memphis that I go. Everywhere else I go, I get in the gas station when I'm on a freeway. We know this about these places. But like, I'm getting to the point that I'm like, you know what? I hate to say it, but just screw it. These people make these environments. I mean, you can try to dig through these police officers, but every time these little incidents happening, it's gonna make it harder and harder to find police officers. Now we get to a point in 2023 where them guys all out of shape because the quality of police officers down. Did you hear that guy breathing in that video?
Yeah, Nathan, you mentioned that in your show.
Oh,
that they were completely out of shape, couldn't outrun
Didn't do
him.
anything.
Yeah, but you got to realize is they're out of shape now because nobody want to do this job.
Yep.
So now the quality, I guarantee you, in probably about another 5 years, you can have a felony and you can become a police officer because nobody wants to do this job. The pay is bad. The treatment is shitty.
You saw what they did to me.
Especially in the black community.
They still do to you.
You saw what they did to me. What they continue. They drag. I came back from the grave trying to save black folks, and they're the main ones trying to drag me. You thought I was Christ coming through here, you know. And it's what Logic is saying is absolutely true, you know. And it's disgraceful, you know. It's disappointing. A lot of the issues that people have with law enforcement coming from black communities. I hear people talk about Memphis. I hear people talk about Louisiana had a huge corrupt problem. New Orleans PD had a huge problem. Baltimore, we all know The Wire. They have a huge problem of corruption. But what do they all have in common? They are shithole cities. And so where are they pulling these great candidates out of? You know, that want to be. And so we're surprised when these officers are actual criminals and gang members. Where they're pulling from the community, they're pulling from the same poisonous well and asked to actually do the job. So yeah, it's
good.
So the question is, there's no justification for that. But the question is, how do we then remedy that? The problem I have with our community is that we see what's going on and we try to act delusional. Like we don't know that these communities are a cesspool of crime and drugs and drama, and we want to blame it on whoever. Fine, cool, blame it on who you want to blame it on. It still doesn't change the fact that what are you going to do about it if the police don't show up? You don't like white police officers, that's fine. But then you don't like black police officers, that's fine too. Then who's going to do the job, right? Who's going to do it? You know, even when you get some of the most educated out of these bad neighborhoods, they don't want to come back and be cops. Why? Because they know the type of people who live in these neighborhoods and they don't want to deal with them. I know plenty of brothers who reached out to me online and said, hey, I wish I would love to be an officer, but the way our people treat other police officers, I refuse. They have too much to lose. You work hard, save your money up, you get a degree. What makes you want to listen? Everybody has an issue, right? When the well dries up, you don't respect the sanitation worker until somebody's not picking up your fucking trash. So this is the biggest problem with our community. Let the sanitation worker not show up for 2 weeks and your trash starts to build up in front of your house. See, you don't respect him when he comes and gets your trash. You don't respect him when all your trash has been picked up and there's no issue. You start having concerns when nobody shows up to do the job. but you don't respect them enough to say hi. You don't respect them enough to give them a raise. You don't appreciate the people who are doing the hard work, the dirty work. It's dirty work. And so, my thing is this. A lot of us in our own community wouldn't know where to take our trash. A lot of us don't even know where the dump field is. You don't know how to get rid of it. Half of us don't even know how to filter damn water. Some of y'all can't even start a fire. God forbid, if the police stop showing up in our neighborhoods, you're going to be begging for somebody with a gun to show up. That's the problem. So,
Hey, Nathan, I'm going to have all the chicks. I hope, cancel the police. Good.
Cancel them.
Yeah.
Have all the chicks.
Hey, Nathan, I'm going to have to get bunk beds in here.
Facts.
I want it.
They're going to be begging for it. Yeah. Yeah.
But if you think about it, it goes back to what Logic said earlier, which I 100% agree.
Mm-hmm.
Who gonna police the black community? The police ain't there because we got this no snitching policy.
That's
we the only one that do no snitching. White folk ain't talking about snitching. They're snitching a heartbeat. You see,
yeah.
And that's why when you talk about, boy, I'm just in a mad shape because my cousin's a correction officer. So when you start talking about what goes on in there, that's even worse than what goes on the street sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But see, I said this earlier, Nathan, you weren't here.
Yeah.
And you tell me what you think about this. The problem is black people can't police each other.
No.
That's why police have to do it.
There you go.
And now, if you look at why these suburbs, these white communities, these Korean communities, whatever you want to say, they police themselves.
Yep.
They only called in a police when it's actually time to protect and serve.
Yep.
I hate being policed in the black neighborhoods. I hate it because I go to my areas and then it's hands off. Matter of fact, I'm going to Germany. I'm going to Germany in the middle of this month, and guess what? It's hands off.
Well,
you don't get policed over there.
Well, let me say this, Logic, because again, it's also, I think that, of course, when we think about bad neighborhoods, we parallel that with inner city black neighborhoods. I think a reason why that you don't have those problems in suburban neighborhoods is because that's also where the police live. Like where I live, I mean, the police officers live around the corner from me. So it's also their community where we also feel safe, and they are a part of the community. When you're talking about inner cities, police officers are not a part of their community. They're looking at it as criminal activity that's going on, but they're not living there. They don't know the people. So it's easy for a lot of stuff to happen in crime-ridden areas because they have no affiliation. They have no ownership. They have no familiarity with it. So I think that plays a part in it too.
But even the people that live there, Courtney, have none of them things that you said the police have. They have no ownership.
Well, right.
They have no true affiliation. They really have no power control, not just within actually the infrastructure. They have no say so in nothing. So, like I said, is that it's what it is.
Yeah.
And they're not going to police each other up. They're not going to sit here. The moms, the dads, the brothers, the uncles, the sisters, none of them going to police each other. So guess who's going to have to do all the policing? The cops.
Yeah. Nathan, you didn't answer my question.
What you got?
Should we, with one of the police officers that we found out that back in 2016, was beating up on a guy in jail, there was a lawsuit, it was dropped. Do we now look at these police officers and go back in the history to verify that there was no infractions, no corruption, nothing that was going on back then where we can look at those cases and re-examine? Should we do that to the police officers? Absolutely.
All 5 of them involved the entire unit.
Mm-hmm.
Every interaction they've had from the moment of their conception has to be re-examined and pulled up. Every last one.
Wow.
Every complaint that was considered unfounded or a complaint that was considered to be, we call it unfounded, meaning that we can't prove that the person's telling the truth. We can't prove if the officer's lying. It's basically there wasn't enough evidence to substantiate. And so, but there's truth. There has to be truth to it, and it's the same issue that we had in Louisiana with Breonna Taylor, that unit, that narcotics unit. they are complaining and reporting them about stealing money from them, drug dealers. And there's drug dealers, you're like, well, I can't snitch on myself. But they're like, hey, I had 20 grand and the officer gave me 5 grand back, right? So you know, this is a real thing. You have to actually really take these complaints seriously now, because one, you have someone who just recently described the same type of interaction that Tyree Nichols experienced, was snatched out of the car. And I tell you all the time, I've snatched plenty of people out of cars. I've brutally beat people down, but it was always appropriate and just, right? We're talking people who were tying folks up with duct tape, shooting people, raping people, robbing people. Those people got whatever force was needed in order to get them in handcuffs. This right here is something totally different. This was barbaric, it was sinister, and it was unacceptable. And so you have to go back and review every single thing that these officers touched and look at it differently. And you have to put together a special prosecution team now to put them inside to investigate this unit, because there should be more charges forthcoming, to be completely honest. But these guys, they're going to be charged federally. And I believe that once the truth finally comes out, and you heard what I stated, that they should be presented with the death penalty. And so death penalty in life, I don't see anything less than that. And I guarantee you, because Tennessee is a death penalty state. So I assure you, the one who's definitely going to be up for the death penalty is going to be the one who has the motive. And if he has motive, that means he intentionally targeted Tyree Nichols. And if he intentionally targeted him, then that is absolutely conspiracy to commit murder. And so he's done.
Now, that would be about Courtney. That was the guy that said his ex worked at, I think it was FedEx, and Tyree Nick also worked at the same place.
You're right.
And
So
those two was supposed to be connected.
Yeah.
That's why I said Tyree Nichols was allegedly targeted.
Yeah. So Tyree Nichols, he 29-year-old, came from Sacramento, where I believe he lived with his dad. So again, he wasn't how I gotta be. He was not right. I wish these fake journalists would actually do some journalism work before they go off the rails and just start saying random stuff. Okay,
Right.
he was not raised by a single mama.
Yeah, he wasn't.
So the police chief was not a baby mama. She's married, and within her marriage, she has one child.
Right.
Okay? And
Wait,
Tyree was not raised by.
Who said he was raised by a baby mama?
You didn't see that clip?
That's the biggest thing.
Tyree Nichols was living in Sacramento with his father. He came to Memphis during the pandemic and got stuck as far as traveling. So he stayed here. His mom was also remarried. So there was a man also in the house. And he loved Tyree as his son and called him son. As a matter of fact, that's how he got his job at FedEx, is that his stepdad got him on the job. They had the same shift, and they worked the third shift, and during their lunch break around 7 p.m., they all went home and their mama cooked them some lunch, aka dinner. So they had a very close, tight-knit relationship. So he was not raised by a single mama.
Hey, look, I just read this article. Hey, look, Courtney, this is an article right now in New York Post. Breaking news just in. The reason January 6th happened is because of baby mamas in the black community. This breaking news. Y'all get blamed for everything. See,
what does that have to do with anything? But
because it's a manosphere shit, man. Like I said, it's a double-edged sword.
He's not, but Jason, he's not even in the manosphere. He's on.
Man, they listen to these niggas, man. Don't get it twisted. Hey, check this out. They listen to these.
I know they listen to it all.
And because now they run around these manosphere talking points, and I guarantee you, January 6th, they gonna convict all the baby mamas in the DC area. Gonna get
so I wanted, and thank you, Uncle Stu, because you read that too. So I want to be very clear that he was in Sacramento with his father. Okay. He came
Right.
to Memphis to visit his mom. He got stuck during the pandemic, decided to stay with his mom and stepdad, and started working with his stepdad. He was also a father. He has a son, which now it's 4 years old. And I saw,
Logic, they're gonna go after him. He had a stepdad.
oh
No,
Lord, I shouldn't have said that.
hey, Courtney, I just saw another one. They did an interview with Putin, and they asked Putin, why did he invade Ukraine? He said, because I was raised in a single parent household.
Ah, you stupid.
That's it. That's it. I saw this picture of him and I just thought that was cute, you know, just to humanize him as well, because it's not just a story or people get fake woke ups. He was a real man. So, and I just saw that picture. The baby is 4 now. So,
Hey, did you see the chat? Somebody in the chat said Whitlock ain't lied though. What?
What does that have to do with this?
I didn't research it, but I would assume Courtney did her research before she made that statement.
I did it too. Yeah.
You Mansfield niggas are. All right, I'm gone.
Nah, the problem with
what's
the first
you
name?
are not gone, Logic. Oh.
What's his first name? The Whitlock guy.
Jason
Whitlock.
So Jason, I plan on playing that video of Jason tonight on my channel.
But make sure you play the whole one, because
the whole video.
The way they got it cut and what he said, it was taken out of the context of what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Now he conflated some things now.
Yeah,
to
he
Courtney's
did.
point. He conflated some things. He made some triggering statements, but he made some statements that were accurate, and he made statements that were inaccurate. And then
okay, hold on, wait. I just got this in. They found Jeffrey Epstein's suicide note, and this is what Jeffrey Epstein said. He said, "I'm sorry for all I did, but I was raised in a single parent household." Look, that's like, that's Putin, that's Jeffrey Epstein. That's the whole January 6th commission.
So baby Z blaming everything. He was raised by a black man.
I'm crying right now.
See.
Okay, Nathan, were you saying something? Because I wanted to ask you
that cup, Logic, man. What's in that cup, man? What's in that cup? That ain't that's more than Kool-Aid.
No, it ain't, man.
Were you pulling up something, Nathan?
I'm doing my thumbnail for my show tonight, and so I'm just trying to put it together. I'm gonna add Jason's in there because I'm gonna break it down. I mean, because again, he pointed out things that were accurate. He conflated things, and he sensationalized things, and then he got some things wrong. And then he also made some red pill talking points. As you know, I'm a red pill killer. I don't really follow that genre, but it needs to be addressed, and I see it causing much more division on YouTube lately, since a lot of the big YouTubers or like the female content creators have been going in on it and things like that. And so the truth of the matter, what he said was, there is an issue within the Black community that needs to be addressed. It's core issues, and it has a lot to do with family, and you just can't deny that. You can't deny it at all. Blaming women is not the answer. It takes two to destroy a community, men, women, and children. And so until we fix that piece, we're going to constantly keep seeing this repeated problem.
Can I do a cheap shot advertisement? I'm gonna do a cheap shot.
Yeah, go ahead.
If y'all want to hear his answer, y'all got to go to my page. His video is partly out today, where he actually addresses this issue. So y'all watch part 1 and part 2. It's only 8 minutes long, y'all. So he said the whole lot.
Drop the link if you can. People are dropping your page, but if you want to drop that link and put it in the chat for sure.
Hey, Courtney. This is from Washington Post, Courtney. This is from Washington Post. Just came in. All right.
It just came in.
They interviewed a Chinese guy in China and asked him why did he actually do what he did with the China virus, and he said he was raised by a single baby mama. Boy, baby mama.
All the blame. You have me crying.
Lead them baby
So,
mamas alone.
Nathan, this is for
Yeah.
you because I saw this in the chat and I wanted you to respond to it because I thought it was interesting. You a black man before police.
I gotta go, Courtney. Hey,
Okay.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for having
Hey, I
me.
guarantee you that dude who made that comment, guess who he was raised by?
A single baby mama.
The fact he got a Tupac picture up as an avatar.
What is going on?
He's
Little mama tatted on his. I know he got it all.
I think what people fail to realize is that policing is a profession. It's just a profession. People like to say, oh, you're a sellout, you're a traitor for being what? Why? Please explain to me where your logic is in that. What do you mean by that? You're a black man before police. I'm a black man before anything, right? Before I'm black, I'm a human being. Before that, I'm a child of God. So we get so caught up in these labels, the hypocrisy behind a lot of statements people make. We want to judge each other by the color of our skin and not the content of our character. Yet you want other people to respect you and not profile you. So, I think there's this left-leaning ideology that some people have really gravitated to. And what he's trying to insinuate is that, they're going to treat you like you're black. You think you're a part of them. Like, I don't think I'm a part of any special group. I don't act like I'm a part of a special group. I'm not a part of no billionaires club. I'm not a Mason. I'm not a this. I'm not a that. I'm an individual. I'm my own person, and so I don't carry myself like I'm better than black people because I have a certain profession, and I think that's where this conversation always gets twisted, is that the reality is you're trying to assume that I think that I'm one way and I'm absolutely not. You're trying to assume that other black men and women in the profession think that they're above black people because they're police and that they're going to be that they think they're different or that they're no longer black. A lot of us don't even think like that.
Yeah.
And so it's sad, but that's a lot of stuff I have to deal with, and as a black man, I'll say, hey, I've done this profession for 13 years. Let me come back and share my knowledge. And then people are like, oh, we don't want to hear what you have to say because you're a sellout. And then they turn around and complain and say, we're being killed and the police are oppressing us. And hey, let me explain to you guys what the problem is, what's going on that I've seen on the inside. Right.
Yeah.
And they say, well, white people and they have all these the KKK infiltrated police. The problem with our community is we perish because of lack of knowledge. And what we see a lot of times is every other group understands how power works. They know they have to infiltrate a system of power in order to use that power for their community. We're the only ones that don't want to do that. And it's embarrassing. And, what's funny is those who have a genuine heart and really want to help the black community, because I'm black and I really want to see things turned around. I really want to change things for the better. Those who really want to do that, it's funny how we get shunned and we're name called and things like that. But the ones that you trust the most that are so pro-black, right, who are always involved, like invoking your feelings and things, those are the ones that are actually shitting on you. And those are the ones that are actually finessing you and taking advantage of you. They put together a whole movement called Black Lives Matter, an organization, and they rob black people of not just their voice, but their dollars. And so again, the same people that you're trusting blindly, you're ignoring those who you should be trusting, who actually have your best interest. And I think the problem is there's too many of us in our community that lack the basic levels of discernment to be able to determine and ascertain who has your best interest. You'll give a man $3 to $4 million to build a motherfucking school that has not been built yet. Yet you still swing on the idea that this person has your best interest. Now, these people say good things, but they don't do great things. And I think we have to do better at always falling for people who sound good versus people who are doing good. And again, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. And that's how it always plays out. And they turn around and be the main reasons, the main adversary that's been causing you the problems that you've been seeing over the last 3 generations. So I always just say, miss me with the bullshit, bless your heart. And if you can't see that I have good intentions, I don't know what to tell you.
Understand. So I know you have a show that's coming up 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, 8:30 Central Standard Time. So, you know, when you get the link, drop it in. I'm going to pin it. But do you have 10 minutes? Because I see somebody in the back.
Do it.
And I'm probably sure this person is calling to talk to you.
Do it.
Am I right? I'm just going to break him up. I know I'm right. He's shaking his head. I know. Little podcast.
Bring him up.
I do.
Nah, listen.
How you doing? How you been? Long time.
I'm chilling, man. It's good to see you.
Good.
Nah, I was laughing actually. When you thought I was shaking my head, it was because I was laughing so hard.
Okay.
It's like I didn't want it to seem like you know, I was coming like on some pressure, you know, type joint. I think a lot of the stuff that R&D was just saying was spot on. I do think, however, though, in these conversations, for whatever reason, if the conversation is focused, right, particularly if we're having a conversation about police reform, right, let's say, I believe the conversation should stay about police reform, right? But sometimes, even in those conversations, we start to take digs, right? Like somebody will say, well, you know, these areas where this is happening at is always these horrible neighborhoods. It's always terrible neighborhoods, right? And then you got to take a shot at the people that, well, you know, it's always these Negroes or niggers, and you know, and then you got to take a shot at the economics of the people there. You know, it's always these poor people. Then you got to take a shot at their education. There's always these illiterate, uneducated folk, right? If you're gonna say all of that, to me, you should be willing to say why all of that exists in the first place. You should be willing to address why those problems still exist, right? And what happens is a lot of times people will say, nobody wants to talk about the 60s. Nobody wants to talk about slavery. Nobody, okay, we don't have to talk about it. But my thing is, if you're going to acknowledge what's wrong with the people, you should at least acknowledge why it's wrong, instead of just making it seem like these people are just born this way, because I don't think they are. As a person that comes from that, I'm from Cabrini Green Project, Chicago, and I've seen people climb their way out. I've seen other people not make it. My mom was on drugs. It lasted 2 years. My dad was on drugs. It lasted 40 years. You see? So, and they was from the same exact place, right? My mom, super educated, a teacher, just retired, working on whatever that thing is you get when you go to become a pastor in a church right now. She got all kind of masters and everything. Like I said, my dad, whole dope fiend, in and out of jail all of his life. They was from the same space. So it's not like, I don't think the conversation that we have, because I'm one of those people who is quick to talk about the police. I always give them their props for all the times that they let me go when they had me dead. You know what I'm saying? Like I was driving, suspended license, no insurance, smoking the blunt, you know, and a detective would pull me over. Man, what you doing out here? Man, look, my girl mad at me. I'm broke. I ain't got no money. All I could afford is $5 nickel bag of weed. You see me smoking right now. And they'd be like, man, you ain't got no guns or drugs, do you? Be like, officer, you can search the car. You can search my ass, whatever you want to search, pause, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever, search whatever, bro. I ain't got nothing for you out here. I know what y'all looking for. It ain't me. You know what I'm saying? And they would let me go.
Was that a white officer that
cut you? I'm talking about white cops too.
White cops too, right?
Yeah, white cops too.
So, and one thing I always appreciate about you, despite our disagreements that we have, I think our disagreements they're natural. Is that you're always transparent and you're honest. That one thing I respect about you a lot, and I appreciate that, because there's no way to have this conversation when people are being dishonest or disingenuous.
Yeah,
agreed. And the purpose of my channel is to bring insight, right? To bring clarity. It's not to prove people wrong, or make myself look right. It's to bring accuracy into a conversation. So when people are transparent, we can bring accuracy into the conversation. And I think to speak on what you said earlier, you are 100% correct about what you said earlier in reference to we're talking about police reform, and then we start segueing off of police reform. And I think what happens is sometimes it looks like we're trying to deflect from responsibility. I think the real issue is it's not that we're trying to get off of police reform, but the reality is this is such a complex problem. This is like a Rubik's Cube of a problem. And there's so many different variables that impact police issues. It's not just on the police itself. You got to look at, and I said this earlier, you can't talk about police reform or police issues if you're not talking about the politicians, right? If you're not talking about the leadership, because we as officers only are responsible for a certain percentage. Believe it or not, we are a reactive group of people. 90% of the time, we are responding to crime, we're responding to 911 calls outside of those that we self-initiate. But it's a reactive job. One might argue, what's the point of having the police? They show up after everything is done, right? And I remember you mentioned that before, and you're absolutely right. You mentioned that before. Like, what's the point of police? And by the time they show up, brother already shot, already kidnapped. Yeah, but even still, over 10 million people are arrested a year by the police. So there is a purpose. We just need to redefine what it looks like. Society has changed, but the culture of policing has not changed to meet the expectation of society. So we have to start having conversations where we are addressing the core rooted issues of policing, the profession itself. What they are having conversations about are conversations about Band-Aids. They're trying to put Band-Aids on something that requires surgery, And so what we are talking about earlier is the surgical problem of policing, where you need a scalpel in order to fix, not Band-Aids. And these politicians put Band-Aids because they want to be reelected. They know if they really have to do the work, you got to have a scalpel. And so, to your point, you can't address police reform if you're not talking about societal reform, right? Policing is a reflection of society. Policing is a reflection of its community. I've worked in a predominantly Black community, and I've worked in a predominantly white community. And the way the police are treated and appreciated are totally different. How can we mimic that? How do we get that over to a lot of our Black communities? It's very possible, but you got to pay the money. A lot of the change that's required, I would rather, in my proposal, they're going to pay out Tyree Nichols' family. They're going to pay them out. My thing is you could have used half of the money you're going to pay them out to actually fix the police department. And so it's a waste. There's billions of dollars. It's $1 billion business. And again, there's corruption, and the corruption is all throughout the criminal justice system. It's all throughout the political system of this country, and it's all throughout government as a whole, because money is involved. And anytime you have money involved, you have corruption. And anytime you have corruption, there's a power dynamic there. And so it is a multitude of issues. One of the biggest problems, and I always say, what can we do as a people? There's things that we can do within the Black community that don't require the police, that don't require government assistance, that doesn't require government involvement. There are things that we absolutely can be doing that we have control over. Why do I say that? Because the only power you have is a power over yourself. And so the Black community gives power to the police to enforce laws on them. The problem is the people that were hired by the government structure or that city or that state are picking bad quality people to do the job. And so, and this turns around is having a negative effect on people saying they want the protection. And so, but they can't get quality protection because they can't pay for it, And so when I worked in a predominantly white department, they paid top dollar. I had free medical benefit. They paid for school if I wanted secondary education. They paid for all this. Everything was paid. And so that's very attractive. And so, and I worked at a department that was one of the top 2 highest paying departments in the state of Georgia. And so you got to think about what type of candidates are you getting. But here's the other thing. They're not taking officers with tattoos all over their body. They're not taking officers who have any stains on their record. They're not taking officers who can't articulate, who lack professionalism. They're not taking it. I had coworkers who were getting suspended for cursing at a suspect they were apprehending. The suspect had just robbed a store, and they suspended him because he cursed at them. So these are high standards held at departments. Could you imagine if these same standards were shared with a lot of these departments in other cities like your Memphis, your Baltimore's, they wouldn't have any damn police officers. You know, so where do we start? How do we galvanize quality men and women throughout this nation to work in our worst cities with the highest crime? What are you going to give them? And if you're not including police along with social reform packages from that only the government can do, then you're doing a disservice. You know, if we're not coming together as a community and then talking about the things that we have control over, like again, the kids not being maintained properly in the city, you know, the curfew issue, not having any type of secondary areas for kids to play. If you're not talking about the social problems in a community, and then as a people, what can we control? We can maintain better relationships with one another as men and women. If we're not educating our young boys, if we don't have any mentors for young boys and young men, like we got to be honest about the crime that's being committed and who's committing, who's perpetrating it, and why that is. And that has everything to do with the dysfunction of our families within the community, and not so much the government's involvement or lack of it. You know, so I think we just have to have a an honest conversation and understand that everybody plays a role in the outcomes that we see today. I think that's where we have to focus at.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that was an issue in Memphis as far as with police officers. They were losing a lot of police officers, and so they were trying to hire 300 because they don't have any. And this is one of the issues that Police Chief CJ Davis was saying. She said a reason why this is happening is because we don't have the help. We don't have police officers. And so she was even at the beginning was talking about the tattoos. She said, now if you have tattoos on you, I will hire you. So it is a lowering of expectations to get people on the police staff. But then again, that lowered expectations, what are you going to get?
Yep.
And that would be the problem.
I think one of the things that I want to try to emphasize for myself to stop doing is stop saying like the Black community, right? Because it's not about Blackness. It's really about poor. It's really about poor in economics and poor in mindset. Because my mom lives in the Black community outside of Chicago, 84% Black, and there's no crime really. It's not 1,000 police officers. They're not pulling you over all the time. Ain't nobody graffitiing all over the place, trashing over the place and all of that, right? 84% Black. But being out there, I realized one of the reasons why that was, even though I'm pretty sure I had heard it years before, I just didn't pay attention to it, was because they own it, right? It's not a bunch of apartments or, low income housing. It's all housing. It's all houses. Everybody's out there paying $150,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 for their homes. And so that's the difference. Because they own it, they take care of it. Now, that also means that the vast majority of these people are older, right? Which means it's not like they don't have any kids, right? Because there's grammar schools, there's high schools out there, but the kids are to a minimum. It's not as congested as the inner city, as a Chicago is, where there's way more people and way more poor people, way more congregations of these same people, poor economically, poor mindset, poor educationally, right? So when you have that going on, it does make a difference on how people behave in the community. Not to mention the fact that the relationship with the police has been, scarred in the inner cities and the urban communities and the poor communities for a long time. It's like we do kind of, Nathan, act like those images of the police sicking dogs on people and spraying people with water hose. We act like that was 400 years ago. It wasn't, right? We're talking 60 years. And so those people do still exist, and they are still a part of the police force. And unfortunately, I've ran into a bunch of them, and they still exist now. And then here's another problem that's not being talked about. Go to Chicago. I go to Chicago 2020, pandemic, lose my job in Kentucky, go back home. Bro, I'm getting pulled over every other day. I ain't did nothing wrong. I got a Mercury Grand Marquis. I got good license, good insurance. I'm driving right, everything. It's just pulling me over. And the excuse is continuously because, well, this is a bad neighborhood and, we're just checking and making sure to be safe. And I'm like, well, you interrupted my day, right? I'm good. Don't stop pulling me over. But the biggest thing was I already don't want to get pulled over. But then the people that's pulling me over, they're not even, true American blooded white. We talking Russian, Ukrainian, Bulgarian accent having white guys. So now this is what you're seeing in your community. You already know, or if you don't know, you assume that they're bringing a level of prejudice with them when they're dealing with you. So now they're harassing you, right? And then you believe that they're coming with a certain level of prejudice based on the fact that they're not even from where you're from at all, right? And so that kind of like maintains that scarred relationship that we have with the police. Then they put those blue and white, red lights, flashing lights everywhere, the cameras everywhere. I mean, I'm with you that the community needs to be better, and we need to do a better job of that, of policing ourselves individually, especially when it comes to family. I think you hit the nail on the head that right there would be the beginning of the cure. You know what I'm saying? If we had focused on having more families, because then you would see more ownership. You know what I'm saying? And in the communities, people will care more about how the communities look. You will see better behavior out of the children because the children will be being raised in two-parent households. But I'm not trying to be the conspiracy theorist here, man, but the criminal system is an industry. Correct. It is a big money maker, from police to sheriffs to judges to lawyers to prisons, and the people who make the toothpaste and the food and all this other stuff for prison, the labor that they get out of prisons. Mm-hmm. In reality, none of these people really want to see crime decreased. Can we be about that?
More reasons why we don't need to volunteer to be a part of it. So it is a business. I'll tell you right now, it's a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. Mm-hmm. And what people don't understand is that business it's networked outside of the prison. They're connected. I know investors. This is something I know for a fact, right? Mm-hmm. Just throughout my workings, people who have investments and ownership in guns, who they also are investors in prisons and private prisons. Mm-hmm. Investors in the entertainment industry also are investors in funeral homes. Mm-hmm. And so when you start looking at how these people are connected, they have a very well-oiled machine for black people, especially black men. Mm-hmm. As black men, we make up almost 6% of the entire population, yet we account for over 50%, almost 50% of the violent offenses. So we are such a small group, but we are out here doing damage. And so, and it's not to point blame or to throw insults at us. It's to acknowledge the fact that we are being manipulated. To your point, they don't want to fix it. Why? Because black people are an investment. We are in $1 billion investment, dead or alive. We make people money, dead or alive. People don't talk about how much these dead bodies cost, how much these organs, how much these organs are.
There you go.
On the market, we don't want to have that conversation. So every time a body is dropped in the hood and the funeral home gets it, they're like, shit, cha-ching. You know, and you giving it deeper, we don't even know how much the melanin in our skin is worth money. We as black men, we're a walking gold mine. So why would they want to get it better? This is capitalism 101. If you want to change things, we have to compete. And the best way to compete against white supremacy, for those who want to agree white supremacy exists, if you want to fight white supremacy, stop harming each other, right? Get married, have kids in that marriage, build that core family, save your money, stop blowing your money on other people, other ethnic groups. Keep that money inside the house. That right there alone will shut it all down. It's so simple, but yet it's one of the most difficult things to do because it requires us to be selfless. And that is one of the biggest trick bags they put us in. If we can keep them being greedy, if we can keep them being selfish, if we can keep them divided, keep the men divided from the women, make the women feel like this, strong and independent, make the men feel like alphas, that they don't need the women and they could just run around throwing seeds around. You get some sperm, right? At the end of the day, they want us to be dysfunctional because it's making them money. So as a community, the first thing we need to realize is if we want to wise up and change things, let's do the opposite. That's making them money, that's paying them. And I guarantee you, we will turn this entire thing around, and it'll gravely really destroy this country because, again, we spent over $1.6 trillion. So who wouldn't want that? We're top spenders, and Black women and women just in general, they call it the she economy moving forward. Right? Women are also, so of course they don't want women with men, because when women are together with the man, they spend less money.
Exactly.
So again, this is about money, man. This has always been about money, and they dress it up and decorate it and say it's racism because it keeps us thinking about the wrong thing. It keeps us distracted, focusing on racism. That's why even with this case with Tyree Nichols, they need a white man so bad. They need a white man so bad to blame it. No, it's this, the brothers fucked up. It's 5 brothers that messed up who were completely wicked in what they did. This has nothing to do with racism. This is everything to do with just pure evilness and actions. And so the white officer at the scene tased them. Yes, if we find out that this traffic stop was unlawful and illegal, which I'm sure it is, you got to prove that that white officer knew about it. If he knew about it, then he needs to be charged accordingly. But he did not assault him. He did not assault. He tased him. But if he's tasing him under the understanding that this was a legitimate traffic stop, and that he's authorized to not move because he was giving a command, then that white officer, you're not going to be able to charge him in court. I promise you this. And this is the type of information I try to explain so our community understands what's actually taking place, so we don't get lost in the foolishness that's being spread or the propaganda. We have to understand the laws. We have to understand the laws that are governed over us and the laws that are governed over police. They're 2 totally different laws. And so if this white officer can explain that he was under the impression this was a legitimate traffic stop, he's going to be clear. You can fire him now. He'll get his job back tomorrow. We saw that happen with Rayshard Brooks. They fired the officers because they knew the city knew they were wrong. They did it because they were trying to calm everybody down. But guess what? Those officers came back and they sued the damn police department. So you can play the politics games, or you can be honest and tell the truth to the people. And so my job is to bring clarity to things that the media is distorting with all of their misinformation and disinformation. And so we can talk about what's not fair, we can talk about the law, or we can have an argument about emotions and moral issues. But at the end of the day, when it goes into a courtroom, the law is how these officers are going to be judged. And I'm telling you now how we can determine whether or not this officer had legitimate reasons, or if the law is going to be on his side. And so that's how this whole thing is going to come about. But to your point, there's a lot that needs to be changed. There's things that we can do, and there's things that we absolutely have no control over that the actual government has to be in charge of, but we have to make them do it, right? We can't tell them, we have to make them. Biden said this, and I'm in with this. Biden said to Ice Cube, right, his group, he said, listen, I have a contract with Black America. I want you to see this. He said, when you elect me as your president, I'll take a look at it. I don't want to see what you got going on. I don't want to see nothing. But what did Trump say? Trump said, all right, let's take a look at it. And he even made adjustments to his plan in reference to how he was going to do things for the Black community. Biden said, I don't want to see it until after I'm in office. That's what we're dealing with. They don't take us seriously. So you have to make these politicians do their job the way it needs to be done. But they are accustomed to us railroading and running over us. And that's why we have our communities look the way they look, and they're still Democratic ran, even though we voted for them, you know? And so we have to not only hold ourselves accountable, we have to hold the people we vote for accountable. And we don't do that. We allow them to sell us emotional dreams. And we just think that because they agree with us and they tell us what we want to hear, that's good enough than actually producing outcomes. That is the problem.
Yeah. Thank you.
I do want to say one last thing to you about what you said about the 10 million arrests a year. I mean, that's insane. That's too much, man. Look, and it makes me think when you first said it, the first thing I thought was, I know it's not even 1 million murders per year. You know, it's probably, maybe it's a million domestic incidents per year.
That's white and Black, though. That's everybody. That's 10 million.
Right. I know. But I'm saying, even with everybody, it's not 1 million murders per year, right? Like, so it's like, it makes me think, what are most of these arrests for, right?
Property crimes.
Yeah, and see, that's what I'm saying. Like when you get down to the brass tacks of it, right? You know what I'm saying? A lot of stuff is just about people's economics, poor economics, and poor mindset. I know about the poor mindset. I had it for a long time. Some would even say I still have it now because I don't want to be a millionaire. I just don't want the responsibility of that much money. But I mean, for me, you know, I think, man, all the stuff that you just said right now, bro, was spot on. You know, people always running around clipping everything else.
Right.
You know, I'm definitely gonna watch this back to see if I could clip some out, if that's okay, Courtney.
Yeah, go
And then,
ahead. And
you know,
we're going to Lil
that,
Podcast,
that was nice.
we're gonna go to Nathan's page because he's gonna break down a little bit more about what's going on. So we're going to. Did you drop the link, Nathan?
I'm doing it. I'm doing
Okay,
it.
we'll pause it.
Like,
So I'm gonna
You,
go ahead.
you,
But
you
yeah,
said you're gonna talk about Whitlock too, right? Because I didn't watch what the video.
yeah. I said I'm gonna have to pop up on your show, Nathan.
Yeah,
I didn't watch it, so I gotta watch. I gotta check it out.
I'm playing the full. I'm playing the full video and then I break it down. Yep.
I will say this though, it seems like whatever he was doing when he was on Fox, he's tempered that, and it seems like he's way more, you know, conscious, if you would, at this point. Like doing podcasts and stuff like that. It's the things that he could see. It used to be this narrative about him was that anything to say against Black people, right? That was him. But he's been in defense of so many situations that involve Black people recently. But you said that it wasn't egregious, right? It was just some things he conflated and some things he got wrong. So,
yeah, and they clipped it. Of course, they clipped it. Yeah.
Of course. So.
Courtney, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I feel good to be embraced with all this purpleness you got going on.
It's royalty, baby. It's royalty. When you come up here, you're royalty.
Right. And shout out to real Nathan, man. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate the conversation, man. Respect due.
Always. Right. I appreciate you, man.
All right, y'all.
Thank you. Drop your link.
I'm about to,
Nathan. So we're going to go over there, and I'm curious about your take on some of this stuff too.
I'm doing it for 9:35. All right, I was wondering if I'd be able to do it since I'm actually on StreamYard. If it's still 6 Memphis police officers involved in targeting Nicholas.
Well, I'm gonna kick you off my show anyway. So
yeah, hold on. Let me.
I'm gonna kick you off.
I wonder if it'll let me go into two different things. All right, let me drop down. Let me see if it'll, because I don't know if it'll let me go into a new thing and do the thing. So I'm about to drop off. And then I'm gonna send you the. I'm gonna put the link up.
Before you leave, though, I think that one of the resolves that we have that we need to look at as far as fixing the situation, I think that you have an amazing plan, and that's with your Blue Phoenix initiative. Yes. So while you're dropping that, can you drop that link and tell us a little bit more about that before you dip?
Yeah. So the purpose of I have a nonprofit called the Blue Phoenix Initiative, you guys, and so. This whole thing after my accident, I was forced to retire out of law enforcement. And during that time, it was the height of COVID. It was the George Floyd thing was going on and protesting. And there was just a lot of discussions about police reform. Where do we go? This is a travesty in the profession. And I just saw a lot of chaos. And I wanted to see how I could actually lend my experience and my knowledge to help repair the relationship. And then also repair the relationship, not just from citizens to police, but also to police to citizens, and then also repair the relationship with the Black community and law enforcement. And so I felt like that was my next calling. And so, I started my nonprofit, the Blue Phoenix Initiative, to address those things. And honestly, I felt like it was definitely a calling. And so with that being said, I dedicated a lot of my time coming up with ideas and policy changes and what would absolutely work and make a difference to implement within this country overall that would give us the desired outcome from the lens of the people we're supposed to be serving. And I think one of the biggest disconnects in the profession is that the servants have lost touch with the people that they're serving. And that's in all communities. And I think we need to get back to the point to where we recognize that we are servants and you cannot stand above those you're serving. And so we got to bring back a healthier relationship, a healthier dynamic, because we need law enforcement, but we need them in the right way. And so my nonprofit It's just about that. Me doing that, rebuilding a relationship, and then also showing officers that they are needed and loved and appreciated. Because one of the things, biggest challenges I've had was feeling that I wasn't appreciated, even after all the sacrifices that I did. And people do love us and people do appreciate it. In the Black community and in all communities, despite the propaganda and things that we hear, we are appreciated. And so I always try to remind officers that so they don't get discouraged, because that's not a good feeling, you know?
Yeah. Well, you are definitely appreciated over here. And I thank you for your work. I thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I thank you for a lot of things. You're one awesome fella.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Appreciate
and
it.
one more thing. This was some breaking news that just came in. The person that raised the price of eggs worldwide has been identified as a single baby mama. That is breaking news for the day. Logic came in with breaking news, and I appreciate him for joining us. So go ahead, drop your link to your show. I'll be over there. I'm excited about it. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, love. I'm gonna drop the link to the nonprofit for those who want to take a look at it. I don't know. Can I drop it in here in the line? I'm gonna put it back in the private chat. Can you add it to the?
I sure can.
Because I don't have the whatchamacallit up. And then I'm going to drop the link to the actual show.
So, and I just dropped the link to, it is risebluephoenix.org. It's the nonprofit organization, which I think it is completely necessary in order to enact some change. We have to do something. And again, your ideas, Nathan, I was talking to my mom about it, about police insurance, about what I think they should have, like doctors have insurance to protect them from malpractice. Then police officers need that too. Like, it's just so much and so many ideas that you have. And I really hope to get that out. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Absolutely. Well, I'll see you on the other side. Thank you guys so much for a great show, great conversation. Come on over to the dark side. We'll be starting. I think I'm gonna set it to 9:35. I'm almost done putting all the little final pieces together.
We shall come and join you. I got the link, so I'll pin it to the top.
All right, cool. All right, thank you so much, Courtney.
All right, thank you. See you soon.
See you.
All right, you guys. I'm going to pin Nathan's show to the top because this is for me. It's important to me. Again, like I said, this is locally for me. Family in Memphis, friends in Memphis. Yeah. So I appreciate you guys so much for joining me again today. Let me drop it and I'll pin it so you guys can set your reminders. I'm going to try to run my mouth over there too, because apparently I got so much to say about that Jason thing. Maybe I was triggered. That's fine. So I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for joining me. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. We are family over here. It's nothing but love. We discuss, we laugh, but we try to have some kind of resolve. And over here, I just want to make sure we have a platform with different ideas, but a standard of respect. So I appreciate you guys so much. And until next time, be a blessing.